The Chief of Staff of the Philippine military says evacuating Filipino citizens from Taiwan would be his priority in the event of a conflict in the Taiwan Strait.
What if a place most people rarely think about, a narrow stretch of water between islands, suddenly became one of the most important strategic flashpoints in the world? And what if the decisions surrounding it weren't loud or dramatic, but quiet, calculated, and still powerful enough to reshape regional dynamics? That's exactly the kind of moment we may be watching right now. The Philippines, positioned between the South China Sea and Taiwan, is navigating a complex set of choices that go far beyond simple defense planning. Every move sits at the intersection of geography, alliances, and rising strategic competition, especially involving the United States and the People's Republic of China. And in a region where even small shifts can ripple outward, nothing happens in isolation. Just days ago, a spokesperson for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China issued a sharp warning. Any move to expand military cooperation around Taiwan will be met with firm opposition. And now, here we are. The Philippines, long seen as a frontline state in the South China Sea, is reportedly weighing deeper security coordination with Taiwan. Naval movements through the Luzon Strait, talk of joint patrols, conversations that used to stay behind closed doors, now surfacing in the open. So, pause for a moment and really think about this. What happens when two of Asia's most volatile flashpoints, the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, start to overlap? This isn't routine diplomacy anymore. Something about these feels different. The Luzon Strait has always mattered, but now it's starting to look less like a passage and more like the hinge of the entire Indo-Pacific chessboard. Because geography doesn't just sit quietly on a map, it shapes outcomes. Take Batanes. It's only a few hundred kilometers from Taiwan, close enough that in a real crisis, distance barely counts. For years, Manila's focus stayed fixed on the South China Sea, Scarborough Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, and the constant standoffs with Chinese vessels. But if coordination with Taipei moves forward, that changes everything. Suddenly, the Philippines isn't managing one pressure point. It's stepping into the Taiwan equation. And that equation, it's far more explosive. On paper, the logic is straightforward. Preparedness, contingency planning. Avoid getting caught off guard if conflict erupts near its northern waters. Any country would think that way. But strategy isn't just about logic, it's about perception. For Beijing, Taiwan isn't just another territorial issue. It's a core interest tied to sovereignty and national identity. The moment Manila is seen coordinating militarily with Taipei, even under neutral labels like disaster response or maritime safety, the optics shift. The Philippines stops being just a claimant in the South China Sea. It becomes part of a broader deterrent structure around Taiwan. That's a serious escalation, and tensions are already running high. Close encounters at sea, water cannon incidents, public accusations. Add Taiwan into that mix, and the situation doesn't just get tense, it gets layered. More actors, more moving parts, more chances for miscalculation. And hovering over all of this is the wider rivalry between the United States and China. Washington would likely see closer Manila-Taipei ties as strengthening regional deterrence. Beijing would see it as alignment against its strategic core. Other countries in the region, watching closely. Some uneasy, others quietly adjusting their own strategies. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. In sensitive regions like this, small moves can trigger outsized reactions. The Philippines may be trying to build a stronger security buffer, but in doing so, it also increases its exposure. Economically, diplomatically, militarily. China remains one of its largest trading partners, and the region is already stretched thin by great power competition. The margin for error is shrinking. So the real question isn't whether Manila has the right to choose its partners. It does. The real question is this: is the Philippines ready for the weight that comes with stepping into the Taiwan equation? Because once the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea begin to merge in operational terms, there's no clean separation anymore. No neat diplomatic firewall, just a tighter, more dangerous knot in one of the world's most contested regions. Now pull up a map, really look at it. The Luzon Strait doesn't look dramatic. It's not vast or imposing, but it connects the South China Sea to the Western Pacific, and that connection is everything. Think of it like a valve in the Indo-Pacific system. Ships pass through it, navies move through it, submarines slip beneath it, energy flows quietly across it. Roughly a third of global maritime trade moves through the broader South China Sea. Trillions of dollars every year. That's not abstract. That's supply chains, oil, food, semiconductors, the lifelines of modern economies. Control the corridor, or even just monitor it closely, and you influence movement. And in geopolitics, movement is power. In peacetime, it's a shipping route. In a crisis, it becomes a choke point. Now zoom in again. Northern Philippine islands like Bataan sit just 120 to 200 kilometers from Taiwan. In military terms, that's not distance, it's proximity. In a Taiwan crisis, that gap doesn't act as a buffer, it becomes a bridge. And this isn't theoretical. Under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, the United States has expanded access to bases in northern Luzon. That wasn't random. It reflects a clear recognition. The Luzon Strait sits at the crossroads of two major security theaters. When defense planners look at that region, they don't just see coastlines, they see air corridors, surveillance zones, sea lanes, early warning opportunities. Which is why even quiet coordination between Manila and Taipei carries weight. Because it doesn't just shift diplomacy, it activates geography. And geography doesn't compromise. Then there's Taiwan itself. For Beijing, Taiwan isn't just another dispute. It's history, identity, legitimacy. The unfinished business of civil war and reunification. When Chinese officials talk about it, the tone sharpens. It becomes less flexible, more absolute. Under the One China principle, any foreign military engagement with Taiwan is viewed as interference, a red line, one repeated for decades. And Beijing has shown before that when it believes those lines are crossed, it responds, not just with words, but with pressure. Economic signals, diplomatic pushback, strategic messaging. So, if Manila moves closer to Taipei militarily, Beijing won't see it as routine cooperation. It will see it through the lens of sovereignty. And once something enters that category, the stakes rise fast. From Manila's perspective, though, the situation looks different. Look west. You see Chinese vessels. Look north. You see Taiwan. Look east. You see the United States. That's not just geography. That's pressure from every direction. Years of maritime friction in the South China Sea, close encounters, water cannons, aggressive maneuvers have changed the tone. What used to be called gray zone activity now feels increasingly deliberate. So Manila reinforces, builds partnerships, expands cooperation. That's what smaller states have always done when pressure mounts. At the center of this is the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States, a Cold War relic that still carries real weight today. Joint exercises, patrols, training, hundreds of them, have deepened that partnership into something operational, not symbolic. And with expanded base access in northern Luzon, the link between South China Sea tensions and potential Taiwan scenarios becomes harder to ignore. But here's the complication. The Philippines officially follows the One China policy. It recognizes Beijing, not Taipei. which means any move toward deeper coordination with Taiwan isn't just strategic, it's delicate. That position hasn't officially changed. But even limited, behind-the-scenes military coordination with Taiwan sends mixed signals, and those signals travel fast. To the United States, it looks reassuring. Manila appears aligned, alert, and ready. To the People's Republic of China, though, it can look very different, like a quiet step toward a broader containment effort. And that's the tightrope. The Philippines likely believes it can walk that line, strengthen its defenses without provoking a backlash, prepare for the worst without accelerating it. That's the idea. But ambiguity is a double-edged sword. Yes, it gives you flexibility, but it also breeds suspicion. And in a region already thick with mistrust, even small moves can feel massive. For Manila, this isn't some abstract debate about picking sides. It's about survival, navigating a neighborhood where tensions keep rising and standing still can be just as risky as moving forward. Because the real danger doesn't always come from bold, headline-grabbing actions. Sometimes it comes from the ripple effects. If Manila deepens coordination with Taiwan, Beijing may not respond where you'd expect. Not immediately in the Taiwan Strait. Instead, it could push back where it already holds leverage, the South China Sea. That means more pressure around contested areas, more Coast Guard patrols, more aggressive shadowing of Philippine vessels, possibly even tighter restrictions on resupply missions. We've already seen flashes of this: water cannons, near collisions, tense standoffs. It doesn't take much to imagine how that pattern could intensify. The strategy would be simple: raise the cost, without crossing into outright conflict. No formal retaliation, no dramatic announcement, just a heavier presence that quietly changes the rules on the water. And the Philippines would feel it right away. Every resupply mission becomes more stressful. Every maneuver carries more risk. Every close encounter increases the odds of something going wrong. Because escalation rarely begins with missiles. It begins with friction. Now take it a step further. Imagine a crisis across the Taiwan Strait. Even if Manila insists it's not involved, geography has other ideas. Northern Luzon sits close enough to Taiwan that its airfields and ports instantly become strategically important, whether the Philippines wants that role or not. And if U.S. forces use those facilities under existing agreements, those locations could be seen as forward positions in a U.S.-China confrontation. That's where a more uncomfortable concept comes in: entrapment. Security experts often warn that countries positioned near major flashpoints face this exact risk, not being abandoned but being pulled in, drawn into a conflict whose timing, whose intensity, is decided somewhere else. The Philippines could find itself in a situation where its territory, still sovereign, still its own, suddenly becomes a critical piece of someone else's war plan. That's not theoretical. That's a real strategic concern. And zooming out to the region, you see even more caution. Within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, restraint is almost a guiding principle. ASEAN has long avoided taking a firm stance on Taiwan's sovereignty, instead emphasizing dialogue, non-interference, and stability above all else. Because once lines start to blur in a region like this, they're very hard to redraw. That approach can frustrate outside powers, but it's also what has kept a fragile balance intact across Southeast Asia. The Philippines, as part of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, has long played by those rules. Even when tensions flare in the South China Sea, Manila usually circles back to the same themes: multilateral cooperation, legal frameworks, and restraint. But open military coordination with Taiwan could complicate that balancing act. Not with loud backlash or dramatic fallout, but with something quieter. Other Southeast Asian countries might start to pull back, ever so slightly. Less alignment, less cohesion. a growing sense that Manila is drifting toward bloc politics instead of staying grounded in regional neutrality. And in Southeast Asia, perception often matters more than what's said out loud. It shapes trust, it shapes cooperation, it shapes everything. Right now, there are two very different ways to read what the Philippines might be doing. The first is cautious strategy. From this view, geography leaves Manila no choice. Taiwan is too close, the risks too real. Ignoring that reality would be short-sighted. Limited coordination isn't about provocation, it's about preparation. It strengthens deterrence. It lowers the chances of being caught off guard. It sends a message. The Philippines won't stand alone under pressure in the South China Sea. From this angle, doing nothing isn't safe. It's dangerous. But there's another way to see it: strategic overreach. This perspective warns that even limited moves could provoke the People's Republic of China unnecessarily, exposing the Philippines to economic pressure and sharper maritime tensions. It risks pulling the country closer to the front lines of a superpower rivalry it doesn't control. From here, restraint isn't weakness, it's leverage. And that's what makes this moment so tense. Because both sides of the argument are right, at least in part, which leaves Manila facing a set of hard, uncomfortable questions. Ones that don't have easy answers or clean talking points. Can it stick to the one China policy while quietly expanding military coordination that Beijing will undoubtedly notice? Does stronger deterrence really outweigh the risks? Economic retaliation, increased pressure at sea, potential escalation? Is the Philippines actually reinforcing its sovereignty, or unintentionally making itself more vulnerable by tying its security closer to great power competition? These aren't theoretical debates for think tanks. They're real-world decisions, with consequences that won't stay contained on paper. These aren't just policy choices. They come with real, tangible consequences. What the Philippines is considering now, closer military coordination with Taiwan, isn't a minor adjustment. It's a meaningful shift in foreign policy. And it's not happening in a vacuum. It's driven by mounting pressure in the South China Sea. It reflects years of deepening alliance ties, especially with the United States. And it's shaped by geography that simply can't be moved or ignored. But at the same time, it cuts straight across one of the most sensitive red lines for the People's Republic of China. And that's where things get unpredictable. Because the outcome won't be determined by intentions alone. It will come down to execution, how precisely Manila manages the balance. Sovereignty, security partnerships, economic dependence, regional relationships. Every one of those factors pulls in a different direction. And the room for error? It's razor thin. This region is already on edge. And in a geopolitical environment, this volatile, even small incremental moves can carry consequences far bigger than they appear at first glance. That's what makes this moment different. That's what makes it matter.